New reporting suggests that FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried actually owns stock in Twitter as well, worth about $100 million. Now, according to Semaphore, Elon Musk invited Sam Bankman-Fried to roll that stock into the now privately Musk-owned Twitter. The former head of FTX reportedly started accumulating the stock earlier this year with an eye on potentially acquiring Twitter himself.
Now, Business Insider also reported the news. Elon Musk then took to Twitter to deny the reports, tweeting, "False." Also, Business Insider is still not a real publication. Just give up. Musk also went after Semaphore, saying SBF is its lead funder, calling their journalistic integrity into question. We want to note that in their reporting, Semaphore states that Bankman-Fried is an investor in their publication. So no hiding the ball here. But Robbie, what do you think? This is a he said, she said situation. Which party do you believe?
Hard to tell. Now, Elon, I think it's important to note that Elon, he responded to Business Insider and saying that this is false, and then attacked Business Insider. Business Insider had just, kind of summarized Semaphore's story. This is Semaphore's scoop. So I don't know if perhaps Business Insider summarized it in some way that makes it not technically true, and so thus Elon is able to say it's not true. If Elon is, denying what Semaphore's saying, that would almost be something else. When he was responding to Semaphore, he just pointed out that they have SBF as a funder, which is true. That that's something I noted in the two radars I've talked about this now, that SBF got involved in a lot of media funding, The Intercept, Vox, ProPublica, Semaphore, probably others. He had a lot of money to play with. He was very interested in propping up some journalistic outlets, contributing to those, etc. I think it would not at all be surprising if he owned a lot of stock in Twitter. And I think that, and if I'm understanding this correctly, the idea is that he purchased this stock prior to the Elon acquisition and then had some conversations with Elon about maybe them going in together, and then decided not to do that, but still has this stake in Twitter. And then I'm not totally sure on the details of the rolling over, and then be like, he does have the stock, so he is part of Twitter. But it sounds not like that Elon necessarily courted him, but Elon has claimed that he saw the SBF scam coming a mile away. Maybe this makes that ring a little bit more hollow, but I don't know. What do you make of it?
It's curious to me that so much of the liberal criticism of Elon Musk depends on characterizing him as not a good businessman or making sound versus unsound investments. And on the other side, so much of the people who idolize him, not just, like him or like what he's done with Twitter, but who seem to put him on this pedestal, are deeply invested in seeing him as this super genius, unique intellectual quantity who can do no wrong. I mean, is it possible that he's just a man who has made some good decisions and who has made some bad decisions, is capable of making a mistake like misjudging the value of a company like so many other brilliant, accomplished people have done, and also is, good at SpaceX potentially, although there's some stories out right now about people who are speaking out from that company about how they had to kind of manage Elon Musk as a manager, as a CEO there. But regardless of what you think about any of that reporting, it does seem odd that there is this proxy battle happening over Elon Musk's kind of intellectual merit, instead of being able to just be honest about how, look, he seems to not be doing a good job with Twitter. That might change. He seems to be inconsistent about how he's addressing the free speech issues on the site, basically letting people on because of his personal experiences with losing a child and things like that, as opposed to having any universal metric. That's a problem. Can't we just take these events one by one as they come, instead of having these proxy wars over whether or not he really is a genius?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we should also contemplate what it would have been like if Sam Bankman-Fried had bought Twitter himself. What if he had bought this company a couple months ago, then went bankrupt now? Twitter employees think they're having a bad time under the Musk regime? That sounds so much worse, and really speaks to this guy's ambitions, a figure that I had never heard of, or had barely heard of, right, until this most recent month. I think I speak for probably many of us saying that someone operating to acquire or have influence, or at least as much influence as you get from making large donations to media companies, Democratic politicians, et cetera. And I have to say, as I pointed out in the 2 times I've talked about this on my radars, coverage that continues to be softer, I think, than you might have expected, given how the mainstream media talks about tech people, including Elon in general. It's usually very critical, sometimes fairly, sometimes I think a little bit harsh. But it would have been interesting. Sam Bankman-Fried in charge of Twitter.
Well, I wonder, do you think that the coverage of the Theranos CEO, who is now going to jail, I believe, for 11 years, who avoided not sentencing, but actually going for a while because of her first pregnancy, but now is going in pregnant, and there's been a lot of discourse about the ethics of that, and shining a broader spotlight on all kinds of women who do not have the wealth and privilege that she has, having to endure pregnancies in prison. But there is a certain softness to that coverage as well, and I wonder, can you solely attribute this to ideology? Is it about tech? Is it people like being obsessed?
You think it was kind of? You might be right. My recollection, though, I feel like obviously the coverage of her was glowing and gushing and soft until the until the critical report came out, right, that none of it works. And then my recollection is that the media turned on her pretty rapidly. But I guess I could be. My recollection is she became like an object of scorn and derision and humor very, very quickly. And I should say, we didn't really talk about her sentencing. Her sentencing seems very harsh to me. I mean, I'm a supporter of criminal justice reform. I don't really want people to languish in prison, especially if they're not like a threat to public safety, which I don't think anyone thinks that she really is. Obviously, she did something very horrible and needs to kind of pay for it or make recompense in some way. I mean, 11 or however many years she got is a very harsh and very lengthy sentence.
I'm never going to argue in favor of longer sentences, but I will point out that it's commensurate with sentences for people who've stolen much smaller volumes of money, and people like the environmental protesters who also didn't hurt anybody, didn't cause any loss of life, were not a physical threat, but who have been going to jail for commensurate lengths for protesting, strapping themselves to oil pipelines and the like because of the threat they pose to capital.
Yeah, I wouldn't put those people in prison for 10 years either, even if they threw some macaroni at a painting. How about that, Brianna?
It was soup.
Whatever it was. I'm just getting hungry. You talked about your mother's macaroni, or your macaroni that you make at your Thanksgiving. That was.
That's what I'm going to do as soon as I get off this camera.
Clearly, I have not gotten that out of my head. All right,
I'll save you some, Robbie.
Thank you. More Rising right after this. Stay with us.